Hey everyone, PE 55. So I'm going to discuss, the dispute of whether or not athletes should be paid or not. Again, it's a tough call. But I'm going to go with the dispute of athletes, not being paid. Uh, First and foremost, I believe that the education, covers that dispute of whether or not they should be paid or not. As long as they're on scholarships, getting their education paid, I believe that should be a huge stance in terms of monetary terms. The issue that I would foresee as a coach would be the justification of pay rates. How even in my organization as a high school cross country coach and track coach, how would I determine which athlete on the team is deserving of more money? Do I base it on wins? Do I base it on uh, who has the most influence on the team? Uh, there's just a lot of variables in terms of justifying who gets paid more, and then I think that brings in more issues in itself than the approach to pay the athletes. Also, uh, the audience is like I think I read it in Coakley. Uh, you know, how do you justify which sports get more money, or should they get paid more money because the audiences are larger? In terms of football, you have X amount of thousands of people watching a football game as opposed to, let's just say, a cross country meet or sports that don't bring in that those large amounts of money. That's another thing to look at in terms of paying how much you're going to pay each student. Also, we all know as student athletes, injuries come into play. So, uh, now that let's say hypothetical, if an athlete's going to be paid for their performance, what happens if that athlete goes down and now they're injured? Uh, do you continue to pay the athlete as if it were a full time job? Do they get injury pay? It brings those type of situations into play as opposed to the educational scholarship. That to me basically seems like a flat rate. The athlete can still go to school, is still on the path to graduate, which is the ultimate goal. That's what I try to push here at the high school level. So those situations come into play. Also, endorsement deals. With student athletes and getting paid for those. It's a tough call because some of the organizations, some of the schools, such as being sponsored by Nike and Adidas, uh, if they were to allow athletes to be endorsed by certain companies, then it can conflict with the amount of support and money that they're receiving from those large organizations. Um, and also, if a student athlete is gonna get paid, do you include vacation pay in those hours? I mean, if are they going to get paid on a stipend, or are they going to get paid, as a full time job? Are they making a certain amount per hour of being on the field? Is it biweekly pay, monthly pay? You bring those into factors. Are they accumulating certain vacation for the X amount of seasons they're on the team you know for every hour of practice, every hour of gameplay? I mean, how would you pay, or how would you justify how much an athlete makes? Um, Also, uh, if we were to pay students, and when we're at that point when if a student does something where it leads to him being kicked off the team, that's my perspective, that's lost money if that person is no longer going to be on the team, but we already paid this person X amount of dollars, as opposed to paying them in education. That the class is going to go on regardless of whether that student athlete is in there or not. Um, so that's another parameter to look at. Also, men and women. Who does it bring more issues upon? Whether a man's going to make more than a woman, or justifying equal pay rates, because that's always an issue. Um, and also receiving an education. Uh, just being with the ultimate goal of reaching from point A to point B to graduate. With the amount that it costs some schools to attend, $30,000 to $50,000 a year. That should be plenty to cover through scholarship, as opposed to paying that person cash. If you pay a person cash, you never know where it's going to end up. Now, are they going to use that money to pay for their school as they should? Do they receive a discounted rate of attending school, through the organization? Just misspending on athletes. It's too risky when you're putting money in their hands, and you don't know whether it's going to go towards graduation. And I've read this in Coakley. The reality is that many players in these sports don't make enough money from tournament winnings to pay all their expenses and support themselves comfortably. So again, I would link that to misspending. If they were to misspend, where would that money end up? When tournament winnings are listed in the newspaper, nothing is said about the expenses for airfares, hotels, food and transportation, or other expenses for coaches, agents, managers, and various support people. So again, how do we justify how much they get paid in order to cover those basic costs? And that was on page 382 in Coakley. And then also in Lumpkin mentioned, with greater dependency on external revenue sources, school administrators at times struggle to retain an educational rather than commercial focus for interscholastic programs. So if most of the time is being spent on the interest of commercialization, and really the ultimate goal is to graduate that student from point A to point B, they just start worrying about more monetary issues than the actual goal itself. And on page 228, in Lumpkin, sports potentially can teach teamwork, yet many athletes injure themselves through overuse while teammates languish on the bench. So that's another thing I brought up earlier, just injuries in itself. How do you justify paying a student athlete that's injured on the sideline? Sports can potentially teach discipline. However, college athletes are often arrested for driving while intoxicated, using illegal drugs, and assaulting someone sexually. So again, that goes back to having free money in their hands. Where does that money end up at? Not saying that they do spend it on that, but it's a possibility that money, now having free money in their hands, could lead to that. Has the pursuit of profits resulted in a widespread erosion of ethical values? So again, it comes back to having that excess amount of money in their hands. Then on page 232, some athletes would receive greater financial benefits than others. This is true and reflects the reality of the sports world. And that brings issues in itself of how much certain people should be making. So, and that's let's see. So what are the positive and negatives? And should athletes be able to acquire jobs? I do believe that athletes should be not required, but they should be able to acquire jobs on campus, so they learn and they're able to communicate with others on campus, have other resources in areas where maybe they may not have thought of working in, such as having IT tech jobs, just being able to branch out, and the school should have its resources as far as being able to funnel certain student athletes in directions. That way they can help them along the way, and those extra jobs could cover other expenses that are needed outside of the educational scholarship. Now, in response to the Knights Commission, what did I learn from the website? So the Knights Commission truly puts forth an effort in the ultimate goal of graduation. They bring up points such as multi-year scholarships, which now we know certain schools are offering only yearly scholarships on the basis that they don't know if that person is going to continue to be out for the sport, or something may happen to that person along the way. Rewarding practices that make academic values a priority over athletic programs. Again, just putting the education at forefront. Fair treatment among male, female, majority, minority. Being able to demonstrate each academic term that they will graduate. And the last one that I found interesting: monitoring of money once it comes in, such as the general treasury. Just being able to control those large factors of income, assuring that it's not being misspent, or someone within that organization is putting the money where it's not supposed to be. So again, just a large umbrella over the income of athletics. And what do you find intriguing and valuable to you in your interaction with sport? One thing that we do at the high school level here in our program is, the point that the Knight Commission brought up, being able to demonstrate each academic term that they will graduate. So with us, we restrict our students from attending out of city competition. We have grade checks, every 3 weeks or so, every 3 weeks to a month. And those grade checks determine whether or not that we take them out of town, because again, our goal as an organization is to get them to graduate. The education is at forefront, and I think the Knights Commission is on that same path, to where their students first and athletes second, where some schools may have that flipped around. So that's the one that I closely tie with, which is what I find intriguing about the organization, and just how much pressure they put on education first, in terms of weighing it over athletics. So that's my video that covers the Unit 7. Thank you.